There is a country so small that most people on Earth cannot find it on a map. It sits in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 570 kilometers off the coast of West Africa, made up of 10 volcanic islands with a total population of just 525,000 people. That is smaller than the city of Liverpool, smaller than the city of Tucson. And yet, in the summer of 2026, the entire world stopped and stared at this tiny nation. Not because of war, not because of disaster, but because of football. And because of a goalkeeper who cried on a pitch in Atlanta, Georgia, while 16 million strangers watched him and did not even know why they were crying too. This is the story of CaPe Verde, and it is bigger than football. Before we get to the miracle, you have to understand what kind of country we are talking about, because the miracle only makes sense if you know where it came from. CaPe Verde, or Cabo Verde as the nation officially calls itself, was discovered by Portuguese explorers in 1456. When they arrived, the islands were completely empty. No one lived there. They were uninhabited volcanic rocks rising out of the Atlantic. What happened next is one of the most painful and consequential chapters in human history. Portugal turned the archipelago into the first major hub of the transatlantic slave trade. Ships carrying enslaved Africans would stop at CaPe Verde before making the crossing to Brazil, to the Caribbean, to the Americas. CaPe Verde was not just a waypoint. It was where the African diaspora began. It was the first place where stolen people were stripped of their names and their languages and given Portuguese ones. The priests called them Manuel, they called them Antonio, they called them Paulo, and then those same ships carried them onward, across the ocean, into bondage. Think about that for a moment. The same ocean that today carries ferry boats between islands in the sun once carried human beings in chains. The same Portuguese language that children learn in CaPe Verde's schools today is the language that was imposed on enslaved people 5 centuries ago. And here is where the story becomes something you did not expect. Because that history, as brutal as it is also the invisible thread connecting CaPe Verde to Brazil. The two countries share a language. They share Creole roots. They share centuries of intertwined sorrow and survival. The Cape Verdean Creole spoken on the islands, a language called Crioulo, is one of the oldest Portuguese-based Creoles in existence. It sounds familiar to Brazilian ears. It feels familiar. When a Cape Verdean speaks, a Brazilian leans in and listens, not as a foreigner, but as something closer, a cousin, a distant family member you never knew you had but recognize instantly. This is important. Remember this thread, because it is about to become everything. Now fast forward to June 15th, 2026, Atlanta, Georgia. The 2026 FIFA World Cup. Group H. The match, Spain versus CaPe Verde. Spain are European champions, one of the most decorated nations in football history, multiple World Cup winners, a squad packed with elite players from Barcelona and Real Madrid. CaPe Verde, this is their first ever World Cup. They have never played a single minute on football's biggest stage. The population of the entire country is smaller than the capacity of Camp Nou. Before this tournament, half of the world would have struggled to tell you where CaPe Verde was on a map. Many people, honestly, would have confused the name with something else entirely. Some Brazilians, in the beautiful chaos of social media, were joking about confusing Cabo Verde, the Atlantic island nation, with the Cabo Verde district in the state of Minas Gerais, a city in the interior of Brazil. Same name, completely different place. One is a nation in the ocean, one is a city in the mountains. And somehow, in the feverish energy of a World Cup summer, that confusion became a joke that both peoples laughed at together. And that laughter cracked open a door. Back to the match. Spain attacks. Spain attacks again and again. Every ball Spain sends toward the Cape Verdean goal is met by the same man. Number 1. a 40-year-old goalkeeper from the city of Praia named Josimar Dias, but known to everyone simply as Vozinha. He is not young. He did not even begin playing professional football until he was 25 years old. That is an age when most professional goalkeepers are at the peak of their careers. Vozinha was just getting started. He had spent most of his career in lesser-known leagues, in Angola, in Portugal's second division. He had roughly 50,000 Instagram followers before this match. In football terms, that is nothing. That is a local hero from a small town, not a name anyone outside of CaPe Verde would know. But on this night, Vozinha becomes something else entirely. Save after save, dive after dive. Spain cannot get past him. The match ends 0-0. CaPe Verde holds Spain to a draw in their very first World Cup game. And while the football world is still processing this shock, something else happens. Something that has nothing to do with tactics, or fitness, or coaching. In Brazil, 31 million people are watching the match live on YouTube through a channel called CaPe TV, run by a beloved Brazilian streamer named Casemiro Miguel, known simply as CaPe. CaPe holds the broadcast rights for all 104 World Cup games in Brazil that year. His style is not formal. It is warm, community-driven, chaotic in the best way. While watching Vozinha make save after save, CaPe stops mid-broadcast and does something unexpected. He turns to his audience and says, "We are not going to ask for subscribers today. We are going to ask for followers." For Vozinha, he is stopping Spain. He is shocking the world. What happens next is one of the most extraordinary social media moments in sporting history. The Brazilian audience, 31 million strong, picks up their phones. They go to Vozinha's Instagram page. They follow him, not because they were told to, not because an algorithm pushed it, but because something in the air said, "This man deserves to be seen." Within hours, Vozinha goes from 50,000 followers to more than 1 million. By the next morning, he has nearly 10 million. Within days, that number climbs to 16 million, more than the combined Instagram following of Patrick Mahomes and Victor Wembanyama. A 40-year-old goalkeeper from a tiny island nation in the Atlantic Ocean becomes one of the most followed athletes on Instagram on Earth. In less than 48 hours. You have to ask yourself, why Brazil? Why did Brazil, of all the countries watching, adopt CaPe Verde so completely, so warmly, so quickly? The answer is the thread we talked about earlier, the one that goes back 500 years. Brazil and CaPe Verde are connected in ways that run far deeper than geography. They share a language shaped by the same colonial history. They share African roots filtered through the same Portuguese colonial lens. The Creole culture of CaPe Verde and the Afro-Brazilian culture of a place like Minas Gerais are built from similar stones. The music of CaPe Verde, a melancholic, soulful genre called morna, has the same emotional texture as Brazilian music. Both cultures know what it means to carry grief and turn it into beauty. Both cultures know what it means to build something whole out of something broken. When Brazil watched CaPe Verde on that pitch in Atlanta, something deep recognized something familiar. It was not charity. It was not pity. It was recognition. And Vozinha felt it. In his first interview after the Spain match, speaking directly to CaPe TV, he said, "Thank you. The Brazilians have always supported us. We felt it during our campaign to qualify for the World Cup, and now we are feeling it again at the biggest stage. We are thankful for it." But the story was not finished. Not even close. 6 days later, June 21st, 2026, Miami, CaPe Verde versus Uruguay. Uruguay are South American powerhouses, 3 World Cup finals. CaPe Verde are underdogs again, but they do not play like underdogs. In the 21st minute, a Cape Verdean midfielder named Kevin Pina steps up to take a free kick from distance. He strikes it through a poorly organized Uruguay wall. The ball flies past Uruguay's veteran goalkeeper, Fernando Muslera. Goal. Cape Verde score their first ever goal in World Cup history. Kevin Pina, who will always own that moment, jumps into the arms of his teammates with pure joy. The 21st minute. As if the universe had a sense of symmetry. Uruguay pull back to 2-1 before halftime. But Cape Verde do not break. In the 61st minute, a substitute named Helio Varela rolls the ball into an empty net after Muslera races out and misses the moment completely. It finishes 2-2. Cape Verde draw with Uruguay. They are not afraid. They are not a team that came to the World Cup to participate. They are a team that came to compete. 1 week later, Houston, Cape Verde versus Saudi Arabia, 0-0. A second clean sheet for Vozinha, and that result is enough. Cape Verde finished second in Group H, above Uruguay, above Saudi Arabia, behind only Spain. They become the smallest nation in the history of the World Cup to reach the knockout round. With a population of 525,000 people, they go further than nations with populations of tens of millions. And in the round of 32, the draw gives them one last impossible task. Defending world champions Argentina, Lionel Scaloni's side, the best team on the planet. But that is a story still being written at the time of these words. What we know now is what this means beyond the football. In Cape Verde, there is a concept that sits at the heart of the culture. It is called saudade. It comes from the Portuguese word saudade, meaning a deep, aching longing for something you love that is absent. Cape Verde has always lived with saudade. More Cape Verdeans live outside the country than inside it. The diaspora is everywhere, in Portugal, in the Netherlands, in the United States, scattered by centuries of migration forced by drought and colonial poverty and the need to survive. The population of the islands has always been half its real size. Cape Verde has always been a nation of people who are elsewhere. What the 2026 World Cup did was pull those people back together. For 3 weeks, everyone who carries Cape Verde inside them, whether they live in Praia or Paris or Providence, Rhode Island, was watching the same screens, holding the same breath, feeling the same impossible pride. And the world watched with them. Millions of Brazilians adopted this team as their own. They followed the goalkeeper. They learned the flag. They searched for the islands on the map and finally found them. And some of those Brazilians probably realized, with a small shock, that the Cabo Verde they were cheering for was not the district in Minas Gerais. That it was something far older and far stranger and far more beautiful. An island nation forged from the first wounds of the modern world. A people who built a culture from nothing, from volcanic rock and Atlantic wind and the memory of chains, and then somehow carried that culture all the way to the biggest sporting stage on Earth. When Vozinha stood in his goal in Houston and waved to the crowd after the final whistle, he was not just a goalkeeper celebrating a draw. He was a man from a nation that had been overlooked for 5 centuries, standing in the light for the first time and saying simply, "We are here. We have always been here." And 16 million Brazilians and millions of others around the world watched that moment and felt something shift. A new name on the map, a new team to love, a new understanding of how connected we all are, across oceans, across centuries, across the ghost of a terrible history that somehow, impossibly, became the foundation of something this beautiful. There is a country in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that most people could not find on a map. After the summer of 2026, that changed forever. And if you asked them, the people of Cape Verde would tell you it was not about the football. The football was just the door. What mattered was what was already waiting on the other side.